I don't really feel like I am, what's it called, educated enough to give this advice per se, but this is like all the things that I've learned in my life that I think are the biggest lessons that I've learned and kind of helped me progress into the human I am today. If anyone is interested, no, I wouldn't be like a pinnacle of perfection. This is not coming from a sanctimonious position either. I still think I'm a piece of shit and I'm still learning stuff, but this is just things that I have learned that have helped me become a better person. Stuff that's made me a bit happier, relieved a lot more stress, and made me understand. This is like my own philosophy, just a better understanding of how the world works if you're having like an existential crisis or kind of having a nihilistic outlook on life. These are the kinds of things that still make me power through. This is in no particular order as well, it's just the things that came to me. The first one is who you live with is a lot more important than where you live. This one is so crucial, especially if you're moving out of your family home. I would be a big home bird because my siblings are like my best friends, so it's hard for me when I move somewhere else that I want to kind of emulate that situation where I could be totally not self-aware though at all, but I think I'm a pretty easy person to live with because I kind of get over conflict a lot easier from living with siblings, like especially sisters, if they're like stealing your clothes, using your makeup and all that stuff. So I don't really feel territorial with things like that, so I don't mind people using my things. I don't mind when there's a little bit of mess in the kitchen, what I clean up after myself. Maybe I'm the annoying housemate then. No, because no, it would have been communicated. So I suppose that kind of outlook on things is, I think, way easier for me to live with people then, because I kind of, you know, you're making the situation in the house a lot worse for yourself if you find it hard to live with other people, and if you are easily irked by those things because it's really hard to change other people's behaviours or control them because you're all equally paying rent, you're all living in the same space, and sometimes people just live different to others. Who you live with is a lot more important than where you live. For example, like you could be in a really fancy house, everything's really nice, you have a fucking huge garden or balcony or whatever, it could be a great location, but you absolutely hate your housemates. That won't be worth it at all. You can't buy a good experience, and you can't buy a good living experience at all. I would way prefer to live somewhere that's like completely run down and really cold, but absolutely love my housemates and get on with them. I've had all experiences because I move like literally every 6 months, so you can get both. I'm not saying that it's either one or the other. Usually it is like, it's hard to get a balance of both, especially in Ireland, because the property is so bad and the rental market is crazy where everything's really expensive, so it would be hard to find somewhere that's like not really nice to live in. But like from my experience living in London, it's way better living with people that you can like actually get along with rather than where you live or the location. Next important lesson I've learned is your looks are the least interesting thing about you. This is probably the most poignant and most important, I'd say, for women, because it's the narrative push for us is that like, well, obviously there is a thing of pretty privilege and the halo effect and stuff like that, but the narrative that's pushed so much is that you're worthless if you're not good looking. And now I still do have these kind of it's not an inherent belief that I think that I hate the way that I look, but it is conditioned in me to be dissatisfied when I look in the mirror and always want to improve myself, or not improve myself, but to change my features to fit in with the beauty standard. And my answer to that is you will never be happy with the way that you look because the beauty standard is ever changing. What I've learned to do, if I'm ever having negative thoughts when I look in the mirror, I'm like, I actually could not give less of a fuck, because I'd prefer to be funny and caring and like for people to be able to have an interesting conversation with me rather than constantly worrying about what I look like. That doesn't mean that like conventionally beautiful people don't have anything in between the ears. That's not what I'm saying either, but it's one thing that you could shift your focus on instead of focusing on how you look or your appearance, because even the most beautiful people in the world have insecurities and aren't satisfied with the way they look, and it's a huge waste of time and it really affects your mental health and how you perceive the world as well. So that's why I have chosen to shift my focus. It's kind of like retrain your brain. If you ever have a negative thought, or if you ever are being mean to yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror, if you just train yourself, your looks are the least interesting thing about you. It really helps. Next one is comparison is the thief of joy. This is kind of relating to the last one, but I don't really mean in terms of how you look or your appearance, but more so like where you are in life and on your life path, because I find myself, which is literally the stupidest shit ever, like I'm comparing myself to literally 17-year-olds on the internet with like millions of followers, and I'm like, oh my god, they got it so easily and they got like overnight success and they're all really famous, which is obviously just completely unrealistic. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'd want to swap lives with them or that I'd want that life either. It's just like I feel like I should be doing that, or I feel like I'm absolutely worthless if I'm not to that standard, or if I don't have that amount of success or traction. And it's like people, I'd be comparing to myself to like people who would be in my secondary school and where they are now and how much money they're making, and do they have a house, or are they fucking married? Well, I would say, no, I'm a bit young for that, but I'd say over the next few years I'd be like, oh, I wonder if they're married or if they're having kids, or like what the buzz is there. As well as last last one is a complete waste of time and is not going to bring you any further, or it actually doesn't even motivate me to work harder or anything, because I'm comparing myself to a life that I don't even necessarily want at all. I love my life. Just because I'm not a millionaire, I don't even believe in the accumulation of wealth, so I don't even know why. I think it's just like the hustle culture that makes me think that I do want to be a millionaire, even though I don't actually, because I'm very easily pleased. To just like focus on where you are, as long as you're self-sufficient. I think that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter other than that. If you're enjoying yourself and self-sufficient, I think the rest really doesn't matter if you're fucking a CEO of a company or not. Then next one is, you can't recreate moments in your life, but you can make better ones instead. This really helped me with lockdown as well, and since lockdown I've been really like, you know, I think everyone was going through it though as well. During the first lockdown everyone was reminiscing and like looking at your life through rose tinted glasses and be like, oh, it would be different now if things were still the same and we never went into lockdown. I completely romanticized my life from 2 years ago, even though I did have the capabilities of not recreating, but like making new memories for myself, and then next year I can look back and, you know, miss those memories too. And especially last summer when I was like living with all my best mates in Dublin, and I knew me and my friend Ash would literally say to each other, oh, this is the best summer ever that we've ever had. This summer as well obviously was another really good summer, but it wasn't exactly the same as last year because all my circumstances are completely different. And I think I was trying to emulate or recreate that over and over again, because I was trying to get that like dopamine hit of having the best summer ever, when that's just not realistic. You have to like progress in your life, and you can't live in the past either, because it would just make you sad. I think the best thing to do is to not try recreate memory or moments that you've had that you want to hold on to, but like keep them as memories and create more instead. This is actually good. Like, I actually think I could be a philosopher, to be honest. Next one is, the most growth comes from pain. Now, I am a bit of a tortured soul. Like, I am kind of annoying, so I take this one with a pinch of salt, but I think that my best self-revelations, best moments of introspection came from when I was completely like, my heart had been ripped out of my chest and stamped on. This doesn't mean like a heartbreak or breakup. It does for me, because when I went through my breakup, I went through a really good period of self-transformation, but I also mean like failure in general. So for example, if you failed at a business that you tried to start, you failed to pay your rent on time, you learn from it, and then from the next month you know how to do it better, and you wouldn't have learned how to do it properly or evolved at all if you hadn't failed in the first place. And for example, from like a failed relationship, you learn then in your next one how to treat people better, how you learn how to be loved, and you learn about the love that you deserve as well. They're either a lesson or a blessing. That's actually a good one. I might get that tattooed. Next lesson is kindness and compassion are more important than being right. For example, like if your friend is in a really toxic relationship, she's getting abused, and you tell her to break up with him or leave him, and she does, and then you keep reiterating the fact that she shouldn't get back with him, obviously like abusive relationships are a lot more complex than that, and sometimes people are trauma bonded to each other and all these things, and then they do get back together, and you say to them, you warn them, you go, they're gonna hurt you again, they're gonna abuse you again, don't come crying to me. I've seen this over and over again with my other friends, where like their friend group has cut them off because of this. Lo and behold, the person does abuse them again, and then they need support from the friends, and the friends, instead of giving them kindness and compassion and saying, I understand and I'm here if you need help or someone to talk to, the friends would go, well no, fuck you, because I told you that would happen. Yeah, that's the only example I can think of. So, oh yeah, the next one has really helped me look at other people with empathy more, and like understand people a lot more, rather than feeling angry towards people if they do something wrong, is that there are no such thing as bad people, but bad actions that come from bad experiences. For example, a child with a really bad upbringing would be really aggressive and just angry at the world. Basically, if their parents are really angry, the system has failed them, really bad family life, and then they don't know how to sit down and concentrate in school, and then the teachers give out to them for it, and then they miss out on their exams and they think they're worthless, so they never finish it off, and then they're again, the system has failed them, and then they're angry at the world. I don't know the psychological effects of that, but I know broadly how that can affect children and how they turn out as adults, and how history just repeats itself, and over again they turn out to be, I know I'm like pathologizing here a bit, but for example, if they can't get a job, then they have to like say they're not educated enough, so they accidentally get someone pregnant, then they have to support for the child, so then they have to, their last resort is like criminal activities to try support their family. And then the thing happens over and over again where that child then is like failed by the system. So you have to look at people with a lot more compassion and empathy in terms of that. So I don't actually think those people are bad. For example, I know a lot of people who are like really prejudiced towards travellers, and it's because they're like, oh, I met a traveller once and he beat me up. Well, you can't generalise and take something off that one experience. That person just like isn't inherently bad, but maybe the circumstances that they've had growing up made it out as if they are a bad person. But it's just like bad actions come from bad experiences and being angry at the world, and which is rightly so as well, because they're completely ostracized from society, and then hate breeds more hate as well. Next one is, you can't force people to change, but you can help them understand. This is something I really had to keep telling myself as well when I was like a militant environmental activist. I still do care about the planet, everyone, but I just got off my bullshit, because a lot of it, when you first get into it, obviously you're really full of passion and fire and you want to make such a difference and you're angry at the world. You're like, how come no one else cares about this as much as I do? A lot of that then can result in shaming others, and I think the worst ever emotion that you can impose on someone else is shame, and I just don't think it's worth it. You can give people information, you can help them understand, but you cannot force people to change. Same thing like your friends and family. It is not worth your time to cut people out of your life and stop loving people just because they don't have the same morals as you. You can educate people, but you can do it with, again, kindness and compassion. There's been a lot of times when like I've said stuff wrong on the internet, obviously because I'm a human, and people have been really nice to me and texted me and just fully explained how it was wrong, and then I go on and, you know, correct myself. I'm a person who would be really open minded and open for my opinions to be changed, so I'm very open to people explaining things to me in a nice way, rather than people like jumping down my throat and like forcing me to think one way or calling me an idiot. Sometimes people are a bit more closed-minded, and the more you actually try to change their opinion, the more further away they go from that. Yeah, the best thing that you can do is just like help people understand, educate them on it, give your facts, but you don't have to fucking force your opinion on them, no matter how much it goes against your moral compass. I mean, like, seriously. That's not to say that you speaking up for yourself or speaking up for what you believe in won't make a difference, because it definitely will, but you just have to do it in the right way, even though as hard as it is, because sometimes people are just fucked up. Like, I mean, like proper racists, homophobes, yeah, just the far right and stuff, and I've dealt with a lot of them in my time. It does more bad than good to scream and shout. It completely invalidates the argument, and they're less likely to listen to you and less likely for their opinion to change. Oh yeah, next one is, money doesn't bring you happiness, but it is a big reliever of stress. So obviously there's that huge saying, being like, oh, money doesn't bring you happiness, but it definitely does have huge implications on your mental health. I think it's absolute bullshit that they're pushing that narrative in. I hate saying this word as well, I'm like literally giving buzzwords in this video, but like we live in a society, no, it's like consumerism and capitalism are like take over so much, so obviously money does have an impact on people. Like if you can't pay your rent, you're homeless, and obviously that's going to have huge implications on your life and your mental health. So I don't know why people continue to keep saying that, because obviously it does. I've been in lots of situations where I can't afford my rent, and it really, like, bad thoughts go to your brain when you can't financially support yourself. Yeah, it definitely doesn't bring happiness and fulfillment, because I've been on two ends of the spectrum where I've been like very well off and like buying shit to fill the void or whatever. Definitely did not make me happy or overjoyed. The thing I've learned or taken from the thing, I don't need a lot to be happy. I don't need a lot, but all I want is to just be comfortable enough to like pay my rent and pay my bills, and that is it. You don't need to make like extra income for materialism or spending things. It's just like paying to live, basically. Is now, I obviously don't agree with it. I'm a commie queen, so I would like I don't believe in the privatization of property, so and I want an eradication of the class system. So now the next thing, change comes from discomfort. You can't control, what does I say here? You can't control, oh yeah, you can't control anyone's moral compass but your own. The example that I can think of this is, I obviously feel very strongly against sex offenders, as I thought that most people would. This is where I slip up sometimes with my thought process, because I think, why doesn't everyone else think like this? Why doesn't everyone think like me and like have the same actions towards this as I do? See, the thing is, like, that's just an unrealistic expectation to have of other people. I obviously hate sex offenders, so if I know of a a story of someone who's my age and is in one of my close social circles, I will do everything in my power to avoid that person and not talk to them, because I do not want to deal with it and don't want to deal with that person. And also, my belief system is that if I give them the time of day and if I'm giving them kindness and compassion, that I'm enabling that person. Now that's my belief system, and that's my own form of like restorative justice, where I just don't talk to them. Now that's putting myself in uncomfortable positions. That's where the change comes from discomfort. So like I will miss out on social gatherings or like parties, or if I'm out with my friends and they show up, I will just leave. But that's just the way I work. And then when my other friends weren't doing the same thing, I'd kind of be disappointed in them and again getting angry at the world. But I just kept having to say to myself that I can't control other people's moral compasses. All that I can do is control my own and hope that they will make good decisions then in the future. It might be just the way that I want to handle things, because I have a lot of repressed anger against obviously experiences of sexual assault, because I've experienced, or sex offenders, because I've experienced sexual assault myself. So that's probably why I feel so passionately against it. But I also think that you don't need to experience something to feel so strongly against it and know that it's wrong. But anyway, yeah, so I can't control other people's actions, but I can do what I can to control my own. And that's how I get my own peace of mind, by taking myself out of the situation rather than expecting everyone else to take action against it. Because at the beginning I'd be like, you have to do this, the whole friend group has to excommunicate them and never talk to them again, when obviously that causes more hostility and strain for me. So I'm the one who's getting punished rather than the actual person who needs to be excommunicated. So what I do now is just take yourself out of the situation. Next one is forgiveness. This is one my friend Ruth actually said this to me the other day. Forgiveness is the best currency. Holding grudges only negatively affects yourself. So I've gone through phases of like, I suppose every child does, like being angry at your parents, not talking to one of your parents, not talking to one of your siblings, and the only person that it hurts is you. I was in ribbons, like absolutely in bits, not talking to my parents. So sometimes the best thing to do is forgive and forget, even if the person has not apologized, because you have to accept people with their flaws and all. I'd say a lot of people have forgiven me that I haven't even known that I've hurt them in the first place. I know sometimes, obviously I'd prefer if it was communicated to me, but sometimes other people just need to let go of things to be able to move on. Again, it's not their responsibility to educate me. Same goes for me with other people. So if I want to move on from something, repair our friendship, our relationship, I will just forget about it. After, like, holding a grudge really only affects you and your own mental health rather than the person, because sometimes the person doesn't even know what they've done wrong. So majority of the time it's better to just forgive and forget, especially with your family members. Now obviously depending on what, you don't have to be mates with your family members, that's not what I'm saying, but if you are close to them, I'm a big believer of, if someone in your family has really fucked you over, you're not obliged to keep them in your life at all if they've been really horrible to you. No, that is. But if they're making an effort to repent and stuff, you might want to look at trying to repair your relationship and forgive them. And a lot of the times, like, sometimes I look back on things that I've been holding grudges against, and I try to have introspective experiences and look at it from both sides, my Mars is in Libra, and realise I was the one in the wrong. So a lot of the times you want to look back on situations with an unbiased viewpoint, put yourself in their shoes and try to understand it then from their perspective. And a lot of the times you're being irrational, or maybe, yeah, so, or just like expecting too much from people. Next one is relationships won't fix all your problems. This is especially for people who are holding on to a lot of insecurities or a need for validation. Relationships will not fix those issues. It will just mask them for a while, and if anything, you'll be the author of your own demise, and it will result in the deterioration of your relationship. I'd say it's a lot of pressure for the other person, something that you need to work on yourself. Now, I don't mean that you can't get in relationships if you are insecure. Obviously everyone is insecure, but if you think that getting in a relationship will fix you, that is not true, completely untrue. So don't get rid of that mentality if you have that. Oh yeah, and then the last one is create your own meaning of success. Try to avoid hustle culture. I have a lot of things, like I have built myself up a career where I don't have to work that many hours in the day to make an income, if that makes sense. But that's kind of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do it myself. Like I don't work as much as, say, my best friend who works in a cafe, and then I feel shit about myself because I don't leave the house every day to go to work, and I don't have to like interact with people that much. So then I feel shit about myself, even though like that is just what I do. Like we just do different things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that one person is more successful than the other. It's just like what our career is. And I think a lot of my success, or like moments of fulfillment that I have, is helping others, having a good conversation that by the end of it we come to a resolution. Like that's why I love doing tarot cards as well, because it helps people make decisions in their lives. It helps people view their lives in a different way. And then also like being in a financial position where I can support my friends and family if they need it. Yeah, so you don't need to be doing 5 things at once to be like successful at all. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Love yous, and I hope everyone's getting on okay. Thanks for watching, you feeks. Have a great day.